Hello friends, welcome to Corfanic. Today we're going to talk about one of the most striking and unforgettable events in modern history, the September 11th, 2001 attacks. This disaster didn't just affect the United States. It deeply impacted the entire world. From politics to security, from human stories to global relations, it changed everything. If you're ready, let's dive into the details of this tragedy and relive that day. First, let's look at the context in which September 11th took place. The year 2001 was a time when the Cold War had ended, and the United States was the world's leading superpower. However, political tensions in the Middle East, particularly America's policies in the region, were fueling anger among some radical groups. Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, was a terrorist organization that directed this anger toward the West, especially the United States. Al-Qaeda had carried out various attacks since the 1990s, but no one could have predicted a catastrophe like September 11th. The planning of the attacks took years. The terrorists exploited security vulnerabilities in America's domestic flights. Hijacking planes was relatively easy at the time because small cutting tools like knives didn't raise concerns during security checks. Al-Qaeda used this loophole to assign 19 terrorists to 4 different planes. Their targets were structures symbolizing America's power and economy. September 11th, 2001, was a sunny, ordinary Tuesday morning in New York. People were heading to work, and children were getting ready for school. But at 8:46 a.m., everything changed. American Airlines Flight 11, carrying 92 passengers and crew, crashed into the North Tower of New York's World Trade Center. The plane struck between the 93rd and 99th floors. The impact created a massive fireball, and smoke began rising from the building. At first, many thought it was an accident. Perhaps the pilot had lost control in a plane crash. But 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower. This impact was broadcast live on television, and millions of people watched this horrific moment unfold. No one could believe it was an accident anymore. America was the target of a terrorist attack. That same morning, at 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The Pentagon was the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense, and this crash was seen as an attack on the nation's military power. 64 people on the plane and 125 people in the building lost their lives. The 4th plane, United Airlines Flight 93, met a different fate. The terrorists likely intended to direct this plane toward a significant target, such as the White House or the Capitol building. However, the passengers and crew learned about the other planes through phone calls and resisted the terrorists. At 10:03 a.m., the plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. All 40 passengers and crew members lost their lives, but their heroic resistance prevented an even greater disaster. The World Trade Center, popularly known as the Twin Towers, was a symbol of New York. Each 110 stories tall, these buildings had adorned the city's skyline since the 1970s. But on September 11th, these massive structures could not withstand the attack. The plane's impacts weakened the building's steel frameworks, and the fires made the situation even worse. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed just 56 minutes after the impact. About half an hour later, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower followed suit. The collapse caused massive clouds of dust and devastation. New York's sky was engulfed in smoke and debris. Thousands of people inside the buildings were either trapped or being evacuated. Rescue teams, especially firefighters, risked their lives to save hundreds of people. However, 343 firefighters, 60 police officers, and many other emergency responders lost their lives in the collapse. One of the most striking aspects of September 11th was the human stories. That day, ordinary people did extraordinary things. For example, Rick Rescorla, a security officer working in the Twin Towers, organized the evacuation of thousands of people and sacrificed his own life to save others. Firefighters rushed into the flames and smoke to rescue those trapped. Many of them were inside when the buildings collapsed. The story of the passengers on United Airlines Flight 93 is also unforgettable. Learning about the other plane's targets through phone calls, the passengers devised a plan to resist the terrorists. Todd Beamer's final words, "Let's roll," became a symbol of this resistance. These people risked their lives to save thousands of. The September 11th attacks claimed a total of 2,977 lives. This was the largest single-day loss on American soil since Pearl Harbor. The victims included people from over 90 countries: office workers, tourists, children, emergency responders. Each loss was a story of a family, a community. The impact of the attacks went beyond human loss. The United States declared a war on terror and launched a military operation against the Taliban regime in Afghanistan in October 2001. This marked the beginning of a conflict that would last for years. The 2003 invasion of Iraq was also an indirect consequence of September 11th. Global security policies changed. Airport screenings tightened, intelligence sharing increased, and many countries strengthened their anti-terrorism laws. Economically, the attacks were a major blow. The World Trade Center was the heart of global finance. Its collapse caused significant drops in stock markets, shaking the world economy. Additionally, social issues like Islamophobia increased, a topic that remains debated in many societies today. September 11th was not just a terrorist attack. It was an event that revealed both the darkest and brightest sides of humanity. The brutality of the terrorists shocked millions of people. But at the same time, the solidarity, courage, and sacrifice shown by people offered a glimmer of hope. New Yorkers took to the streets that day, distributing water, blankets, and food to one another. The world came together in response to this tragedy. Today, the traces of September 11th are still visible. In New York's Ground Zero, where the Twin Towers once stood, there is now a memorial and museum. Every year on September 11th, ceremonies are held to honor those who lost their lives. This event is remembered as a turning point in modern history. September 11th showed us both the fragility and the strength of humanity. Remembering this disaster is not just about honoring those we lost, but also about drawing lessons for the future. What do you think about this event? Did you experience September 11th? Or did you learn about it later? What moment from that day impacted you the most? Share in the comments and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Take care.